family, I want you to take a look at the title of this article on Medium, written by no less than Joe Biden or someone in his campaign. Lift every voice. The Biden plan for Black America. Okay, now that sounds good when you first read the title, but we're going to get into this article and I'm going to show you why it's a bunch of bullshit. Keep in mind, this is the same Joe Biden that wrote the '94 crime bill. But let's get into this garbage he's talking about. Among the greatest honors of my life was a trip I took to Memphis in October of 2018 to visit the National Civil Rights Museum and receive the institution's annual Freedom Award. While I was there, I had the chance to stand on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel where Dr. King was assassinated half a century earlier and reflect on all the progress we made and that which we hadn't in the years since that unbearable day. The motel balcony leads back into Dr. King's room, a room preserved just as it was on the night he was taken from us. The bed is unmade, coffee cups are scattered on the table. There is a restless spirit in that room of a dream deferred of unfinished business. The night before Dr. King was assassinated, he stood at the pulpit at Mason Temple and delivered what turned out to be his final sermon, a call to support sanitation workers who were striking for better pay. He commanded the congregation, let us move on in these powerful days, these days of challenge to make America what it ought to be. 52 years later, his charge remains as vital as it was that night. We have made extraordinary strides along many fronts, but for African American families, we have not yet made America what it ought to be. The truth is, African Americans can never have a fair shot at the American dream so long as entrenched disparities are still allowed to chip away at opportunity. You don't have an equal chance when your schools are substandard, where your home is undervalued, when your car insurance costs more for no good reason, or when the poverty rate for African Americans is more than twice what it is for whites. Now, before I go on, here's the thing about this article in the beginning right here, because we're going to break this bullshit down. Every one of them on both sides, Republican and demonKKKrat, always start talking about Dr. King. And I'm going to tell you why they do that. A lot of you already know, but a lot of you may not. And younger people that are listening to this need to be made aware of this. They go and use Dr. King, Dr. King, Dr. King. They're always talking about Dr. King. And they try to play on the fact that we all know our good brother Martin, honorable elder, he was a minister. He was into the church. Religion is used to manipulate and mislead black people all the time. Everything that he's talking about here, I'm going to show you why this whole thing he's talking about is bullshit. He's using black. He's using African American. But think about this. If this man truly believed in anything that he just stated here, if he really felt this way, why would you need to wait till it's an election year to be doing anything to undo the damage? If you really had this great epiphany about how bad black people are doing, because they can read like a book everything that we live. That's another insult that people like him and Beto O'Rourke and all the rest of them on either side of political parties will use. They will read us what we're going through. And before I get it, because I'm going to really break this down, think about this. If you're in the desert, okay, and you've been out there for a number of days, and I'm on a horse and I come riding up and I got water and I'm drinking it and I'm pouring water all down my throat, just wasting it, hitting the ground. And I see you down there and I tell you, you know what? Man, I started telling you everything that I know you've experienced in this desert, being without food or water. And I just say, well, you know what? How about you pull yourself up by your bootstraps? I know how you feel. I can relate. Now, I'm on this horse. I got water. In fact, I just ride off after I tell you that. That's the equivalent of what these bastards do when they do this bullshit right here. So let me go ahead and get into how diabolical this shit is, actually, when you read between the lines, because see, you have to understand how white supremacy works to actually get the sense of this. Okay, He says, I believe that the moral obligation of our time is to rebuild our economy in a way that finally brings everyone along. Oh, and definitely I'm going to put the link in the description so you all can read this for yourself. Okay. Now, I'm going to focus on that part right there. No part of white America is interested in doing that because this economy is built off of keeping us at the socioeconomic bottom. Look at all these different other groups that side with team white supremacy. Okay, there's a racial hierarchy here. We see that, and it reflects on a socioeconomic level. These people have no intention of trying to rebuild the economy in a way that finally brings everyone along. See, the whole lift all, and anytime they're talking about lifting, imagine this. Let's just use the boat analogy. If you were in a boat, okay, and you got some boats that are all on the surface of water, all right, they're trying to spin it as if rising tides lift all boats, okay? Now, the boats would be these other socioeconomic groups and racial groups above black society. Our boat is below the water. So if the tide does rise, we're still on the bottom. Do you get the sense of that, black family? Okay. So we're going to go on down here and further break this down because, see, I'm just going to highlight the bullet points of this bullshit so you can see how diabolical this shit is. And I'm going to let you all read the whole article for yourself. But check this out. Let me scroll on down here. Because, see, he's got a plan. Oh, he's got a plan that he's going to put into action. All this planning. See, before I even get down to that section, man, if you see that somebody needs something and you got to wait for them to ask you something, does that make you a good person? If you see all this stuff going on, you got to wait till somebody asks for help. If you thought it was the right thing to do, you would just be about doing it. They would be able to come to us and say, okay, this is what I've already got going on. I've got a track record of 20 or 30 years of helping undo these things with economic corrective action specifically for us, the same way they do for other groups. Look at this. Today, I'm releasing a new plan to achieve equity for the African American community and take us one step closer to making America what it ought to be. The 6 pillars. Oh, man, there's a number for you. 6, all right. Hey, I ain't even gonna go there. 6 pillars of my plan are as follows. But it fits when you look at how demonic this shit is. Advance the economic mobility of African Americans and close the racial wealth and income gap by investing in African American workers, businesses, and communities, and expanding African American home ownership and wealth building. And I'm gonna break this down. I'm gonna go ahead and read all of these, and then I'm gonna break this down to show you why I say it's demonic. Expand access to high quality education and tackle racial inequity in our education system by investing in universal preschool, closing funding gaps by race, making college affordable, and tackling the student debt crisis. Okay, here's the next one. End health disparities by making far-reaching investments, expanding access to affordable health care, improving the quality of care African Americans receive, and making health equity a reality for African Americans. Okay. Strengthen America's commitment to justice by ending incarceration for drug use alone, reducing the number of people incarcerated, reinvesting those savings in communities affected by mass incarceration, and addressing systemic misconduct in police departments and prosecutors' offices. Make the right to vote and the right to equal protection real for African Americans by dramatically expanding the Department of Justice's ability to fight voter suppression and gerrymandering, bringing the full force of the federal government's authority to confront voter disinformation efforts targeting African Americans, and appointing a federal judiciary that looks like America. Address environmental justice by making historic investments, enforcing environmental justice legislation, and ensuring that African Americans are dealt in on the country's clean energy future. Now, let's go ahead and look back at these things, right? Let's go ahead and look back at them. Let's go on back to the top of this and start right here. Every single thing that he's talking about Every single thing that he's talking about has been going on. And like I said before, if you were really concerned about it, you would already be doing these things. You would already be doing these things. You wouldn't need to wait till an election year or make a grand announcement about doing it. See, what they're doing, these 6 things that he's talking about, I want you to pay attention to how white supremacy works. These are the things that they know are hurting us. They have no intention at all of improving any of this. And I'm going to tell you how. See, they're talking about it. Notice how they're not laying out any specific action that they're going to take or that he's intending to take. There's no specific action being mentioned. None. He's talking about it. See, you have to make sure you read this stuff. Notice especially when he starts talking about the incarceration, because see, he knows he fucked up with that crime bill. They're starting to use the terms black and African American because they're imitating the terms of new black media now. But see, he knows he fucked up with that crime bill, so he put that part in there about commitment to justice. Notice he doesn't have anything in there about prosecuting these damn race soldiers that's out here killing and shooting unarmed black people. Nothing about taking any type of certification away from them, the post certification, so they can't ever be a police officer again. Notice they're not talking about punishing the white people that are doing this, the white supremacists. They're not talking about that. None, and you can look back at every point when you read through it for yourself, because the link will be in the description. Always read something like this and say, okay, they're telling us what our problems are, but what solutions are they going to have? In other words, are they talking about giving us the same solutions that they have been doing for these other groups, especially the Democrats? They have prioritized every other group over black people. LGBTQ, they're immigrants. And I mean, you know what I'm saying? I'm talking about illegal ones too. They prioritize every other group over us, and we have been their strongest voter base for over 50 years. And all of that's changing now, so now they're trying to throw whatever they can at the wall to see if it's gonna stick. With the whole, we gotta get Trump out of office. It doesn't matter whether it's a Republican or a Democrat in office. If they're both on team white supremacy and they're not doing anything for our specific groups, we're not gonna vote for you. It's as simple as that. Okay? Now let's go on further and read this crap. This plan will tackle some of the most stubborn and pervasive issues, including those that often go unnoticed, that hold back African Americans from receiving an equal shot. African American entrepreneurs seeking capital are rejected at a rate nearly 20% higher than white entrepreneurs and receive far less support when they do get funding. We're going to fix that by doubling the state small business credit initiative, doubling funding for a program that supports mission-driven lenders in low-income communities, expanding the new markets, tax credit, blah, blah, blah. Listen, I'm going to stop right there. If he really wanted to do any of this, you know what would fix all of that? See, they know these things. They know it because they've been studying how to bring a final solution to the so-called Negro problem in America since this country's inception and the end of slavery, or the so-called end of slavery because it's still legal in the prison system. They've been studying the final solution to get rid of our asses. So they know all these things. You know, if they were serious with what they would do to this, go ahead and pay us our reparations. All that what you give us the money, we'll decide what to do with it. See, you see what I'm saying? See, that shoots all this bullshit down. When you scroll down in this article, there's nothing in here about go ahead and giving us reparations. Let's get to this COVID part right here too. Look at this. The first installment of the Paycheck Protection Program created in response to COVID-19 largely left out, there's that minority word, minority-owned businesses. We're going to fix that by providing entrepreneurs with technical assistance and legal and accounting support to ensure that they can apply for funding, producing a weekly dashboard to track exactly which businesses are receiving economic relief and reserving half of all new relief funds for small businesses with 50 or fewer employees, a category that includes 98% of all minority and women-owned businesses. Okay, let's stop right there. We gotta break this bullshit down. Think about this. they are slipping in the minority term after they use all this black African American talk. See, they always try to keep that minority term in there, but see, this is why we should be so offended at that. When you start talking about minorities, first and foremost, that's white women, that's LGBTQ, okay? You even got some categories that are called double minorities. See, we can't get caught up in that minority trick bag. Anything talking about minority anything talking about black people shouldn't have the word minority in it. Any way, shape, or form. It shouldn't at all. Okay? See, they know these things. That's what I'm trying to impress upon you all in this. They know what our problems are. And each one of them, I'm going to tell you the counter to it. Each one of these things that he listed, that's what we need to be focusing on building for ourselves. Because see, these people are all they're trying to do is figure out a way to get us to keep voting for them for nothing. That's over with. If you're not coming with tangibles, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. But what I am going to say is whoever you choose, if they're not bringing you the same tangibles that they do other groups, okay, why should they get your vote? Ask that question. Why should we as black people be the only people that's expected to do something for nothing? We've done enough of that. We've carried every other group in this country on our backs. It's time for that to end. It's time for that to end. And those of us on code, we're not going for it. Okay? Now let's read further into this crap. The gap between African American and white home ownership is larger today than it was when the Fair Housing Act was first passed in 1968. A key contributor to the unacceptable racial wealth gap that persists between American households. We're going to fix that by investing $640 billion over 10 years to ensure that every American has access to housing that is affordable, accessible, stable, and safe, energy efficient, and located near good schools. We'll create a tax credit of up to $15,000 for first-time home buyers available at the moment they make their purchase, establish a new homeowners and renters bill of rights to bar deceptive and discriminatory practices, and bring more accountability and oversight to mortgage brokers and landlords, and end discrimination in credit reporting by creating a new public credit reporting agency to catch and eliminate racial disparities and establish national standards for housing appraisals to put an end to undervaluing homes in African American neighborhoods. You know what, family? This bullshit right here, see, I'm going to tell you what we're going to have to start doing with these people. When they come to us seeking our vote, they already need to be coming saying, hey, look, I've already got this in action right now. If they're not saying, if they can't present to us, hey, look, this is what I'm already doing before an election year, and they've got a track record of it, we don't even need to hear anything they got to say. Because, see, this is the thing. I've heard some coons and ignorant people, well, if we give them a chance to get them in office, then we can hold them accountable. Let me ask you something. If you put these bastards in office the same way we've been doing, how do we enforce making them come through on what they promise us? We don't have any way of doing that. So no, you get what you need from these bastards before you put them in office. That's the way we're going to have to do business from now on. See, and that's exactly what our vote is. I keep saying it. Our vote is a business transaction. That's the language we're going to have to start using with these sons of bitches, because they always want to come to us when it's time to talk business. Notice how they always talking about entertainment and playing and stuff about, oh, we'll get you down the line. Like this bullshit I'm about to read. The typical African American family holds about 1/10 of wealth of a typical white family, and the disparity has grown worse, not better, over the last 50 years. We're going to fix that by implementing, here this motherfucker go, Congressman Jim Clyburn's 10-20-30 plan to ensure that federal programs are reaching persistently impoverished communities and targeting new green infrastructure projects and the good paying jobs that come with them. Historically marginalized neighborhoods. In conjunction with that work, we'll expand on the Obama-Biden administration's efforts. That right there is a problem alone. Nothing in that damn administration was good for black people, period. It wasn't. So you already fucked up right there. Efforts to increase federal and state contracting opportunities for African American owned businesses, including by increasing funds for the Minority Business Development Agency and expanding the work of its landmark federal procurement center. We'll also close the digital divide by investing 20 billion in broadband infrastructure to reach underserved communities and passing the Digital Equity Act. And we'll make it easier for African Americans to retire with dignity by revamping employer retirement plans and putting them within reach of far more workers, and by making Social Security benefits more generous and equitable. For too long, African Americans have not been adequately dealt into the middle class. We're going to fix that by passing the Paycheck Fairness Act and ending unequal pay, getting our essential workers the pay, protections, and dignity they deserve, strengthening public and private sector unions, and raising the minimum wage to $15 per hour. We'll provide high-quality universal pre-K for every 3 and 4-year-old in America. Oh boy, he just got that white man, I'm gonna talk on and on with bullshit down pat. And I want you all to study this so that every child gets off to a good start and close the funding gap between white and non-white school districts to ensure that African American families can thrive across generations. We'll tackle the student debt crisis, which disproportionately, there's that damn disproportionately word again, burdens of African Americans, make public colleges and universities tuition free for families with incomes below $125,000, and invest more than $70 billion in HBCUs, and there's minority again, serving institutions to equip the next generation of African American professionals to succeed. See, hold on. This bullshit that he's talking about right here, all of that I just read, it's all a bunch of listing what the problem is, and it sounds good. But ask yourself this. Again, if you see all of this is wrong, if you've seen it for years and have had a hand in it, you could have already been doing something to benefit and undo the economic damage that has been done. See, that's the train of thought I want you all to stay on with this. Let's continue reading this crap. There is much more to my plan after all. The roots of inequity are sprawling and touch nearly every corner of African American policy and society. We need to take serious steps to reduce racial disparities, and we need to put an end to forces that profit off of our criminal justice system. We need to restore the Voting Rights Act, and we need to ensure that every community has access to safe drinking water. Building an equitable nation will require a broad and coordinated push across the full scope of our government and society. But it can and must be done. I encourage you all to read the full details of my plan here, and I look forward to making it a reality with the help of lawmakers, community leaders, and families across the country who aspire to the dream of Dr. King and his words. Let us move on in these powerful days, these days of challenge, to make America what it ought to be. Now I want you to focus on this last part of this. When he says making it a reality with the help of lawmakers, community leaders, and families across the country, let's break down each one of them things. The lawmakers he's talking about are people like the Congressional Black Congress that's mostly of black immigrants that don't do a damn thing for black society in America. It's particularly foundational black Americans, African Americans, whatever term you want to go with. They don't do a damn thing for the descendants of of slaves in America here. They don't. Okay? The community leaders he's talking about, those are those chosen puppets by them that are put in place. And I'm going to give you an example of one. That Surgeon General, that little weasel, they pick bastards like that and call them our leaders. Let me tell you something, black family. You don't let these motherfuckers put leaders in front of us. Our leaders come from us. We choose our leaders, okay? And these families across the country who aspire to the dream of Dr. King, so let me tell you what that is. You got to break this coded language down that white supremacy uses when they put this bullshit in front of you. The families across the country who he's talking about, they're talking about the average black person. But see what this is, this entire article, and I'm going to let you all read it for yourself because I skipped straight to the point on breaking this shit down. What it is they're doing in this whole article is dangling a carrot in front of us. Dangling a damn carrot. What we going to have to do is tell these motherfuckers, if you want anything from us, you're not going to dangle no carrot in front of us. You're going to bring the motherfucking carrot truck to us. See, before I close this out, this is the mindset I want you to have. Don't have this whole seat at the table, piece of the pie mentality. Fuck all that. Motherfucker, I want the recipe to make the goddamn pie, and I want control of the fucking oven. That's the mindset that we gonna have to have. So, black family, with that being said, I'm gonna put the link to this in the description. Make sure you tell these motherfuckers in outer party to kiss your ass if they're not coming with specific tangibles already. See, they need to be bearing gifts already before we put them in any type of office or give them our vote. Okay? That being said, I will see you all in future content. Stay safe. Take care.